So, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Wayne, for speaking today. It's great to have you. So, Wayne Greenway is the CEO and principal consultant of Career Aviators. Career Aviators is Canada's only career management firm that is certified B Corporation. Career Aviators helps professionals, managers, and executives find positions in which they will excel, value highly, and love to do. The profits from their work support programs to help vulnerable youth flourish in the face of highly stressful life situations. Wayne is a highly experienced workshop facilitator who specializes in experiential approaches to workshop with the group. Thanks again for speaking today, Wayne, and good luck with the presentation.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for inviting me today to speak with you all. And so what I'm going to do is take you through a quick PowerPoint, and if you have questions, just write them in the chat box. I'm probably better to answer questions at the end. I haven't mastered the art of doing questions as I go along in a presentation, but I'll tackle them all at the end. So if you have questions, just type them in. If we run out of time, you can always contact me at Career Aviators, wayne.greenway@careeraviators.com, and I'm happy to answer questions. And I see people free for a session all the time. So I'll just get started now. And okay, so when we're talking about interviewers, most people, we're going to be talking about achieving interview success. And what most people do is they talk about the questions and how do I answer the questions. But I think it's better to tackle it from thinking about what is it that interviewers are looking for. If you can understand what's in the mind of the interviewer, then that allows you to answer their questions and frame your answers in a better way. So the first thing, and I know when you see this, that interviewers look for is somebody who's positive, focused, present, and curious. Now, you can say, well, that's obvious, but I've done about 5,000 interviews in my career, and I can tell you that it wasn't obvious to many of those people who came in for interviews. And I just want to ask you to think about it. If you were interviewing, who would you want to hire? Would you want to hire somebody who's positive, focused, present, and curious? Or somebody who is talking to you either by video or in person when COVID's over, and they're thinking about something else. I mean, as the interviewer, you don't have a clue what they're thinking about, but they're clearly not present. They're not focused on the questions or on what they're doing. Do you want somebody who's positive? Or do you want somebody who, when they give their examples in their answers, they're talking about negative things that happened and difficulties they had? Do you want somebody who's focused, or do you want somebody who is kind of saying, well, I can fit into anything you want to do, and they're kind of desperate? Do you want somebody who's curious, or do you want somebody who's just wants to come in and do the job and go home? So, there's varying numbers in the literature, percentages, but I would say that 40% of the decision is based on these things, on how positive, focused, present, and curious. And these things together make up mindset and focus. Now, what I do with clients is I spend quite a bit of time on this. We do the beginning of every session is based on mindset and focus. And if you have the right mindset and focus, it'll affect every part of your job search. It'll affect which jobs you pick. It'll affect your resume. It'll affect your letter. It'll affect your networking. It'll affect, and most of all, what we're talking about today, it will affect your interviews. So what I do is quarterly, I do a free week. It's an hour a day for a week, and by the end of it, you'll have a really good understanding of mindset and focus. And if you're interested, you can go on Eventbrite and register. I'd love to meet you. Okay, so what else do interviewers look for? Well, this is the other thing, is they look for people who know how their strengths will benefit the employer. And that may seem kind of obvious too. But most people talk about their strengths in kind of general language. You want to talk about how your strengths, the particular strengths that you have that are going to be useful and beneficial to the employer. When you're doing an interview, you want to think, who am I talking to? It's like when you're if you work retail and you're talking to a customer, you're thinking about the customer's needs. When you're an interviewer, you're thinking about the interviewer's needs. And the interviewer needs to pick some people, especially in the first round of interviews. They need to pick somebody who will have the skills to do the job and will benefit the employer. Okay. Out of all the interviews I did, the worst answer was, why do you want this job? And almost always the person answered with some reason that benefited them. And while I'm interested that this job will help you to get your master's degree, what I want to know is, how will it benefit me as the employer? And so a common answer might be, a good answer might be, I want to take the successes, and remember I said successes that I've had in this area, together with the successes I've had in this area, to help you achieve, me being the employer, achieve whatever it is that they're trying to achieve. And this is along the same lines. It's very important to get as clear an understanding of what problems they want to solve. Now, you can say, well, I can't get much from the job description. But if you've done your search strategy right, you've done networking, and you should have been talking to people who are working in that department, and that's probably how you found out about the job. If you've done it really well, you've already talked to the hiring manager, and you've learned about what the problems or gaps are that they're going to face. Because if you can talk to the hiring, you can usually talk to the hiring manager before the job is posted. So if you do your networking well, you can have a good conversation with you, and that will help you enormously in the interview. It'll help you with your letter and application too, because you can customize it properly. Okay, so let's get down to the real meat and potatoes of this. It's about qualification. So the way the interviews work is, you're going to have a screening interview, usually with HR, and the purpose of that interview is to determine who has the skills to do the job, who is qualified to do the job. And if they send people to the hiring manager who aren't able to do the job, they're in trouble. So their interview is going to focus on the qualifications. And so the way you need to prepare for your interview is, you want to list the qualifications, turn them into questions that you would ask if they were an employer, and then create a story that shows your success that you've had from another job in your career. And the format of those stories is, yes, I have had experience in ABC. When I worked in such and such a place in this role, I did, and then talk what it is, and these were the results. Or you can say, when I worked in such and such a place, I had these results from the work that I did. So you can vary it a bit, but we basically want those three components in your answers. Now, so what you want to do is, you don't want to wait until you get invited to the interview to start preparing. If you've targeted well and you've chosen the role you want, you've networked to find this opportunity, you know it fits, you know how it fits, you know the strengths you want to do, then you want to start preparing the day after you send in your application. So make your list of practice questions and make your list of stories and practice saying your stories. And it's not so much you want to memorize answers, but you really want to know a variety of those stories, so that no matter what question they throw at you, you're going to have a story that is going to show success in the areas that they're looking for. Now, when you get into second level interviews, they're still going to ask you about the qualifications and your skills, but there's going to be more questions about fit. Okay, so you're going to get some behavioral questions in the first round of interviews, but you'll get more behavioral questions and fit kind of questions in the second round. Now, everybody freaks out with these. They're not easy questions to answer by any means, but the important thing is that, 1, you're authentic, 2, you're positive, 3, you're direct, and not canned. Please don't, I can't tell you how many canned answers I've had to these kind of questions. You need to have a story, you need to be real, but you still need to be positive. And I can answer questions more about this in the questions and answers. But like, you want to prepare, you want to be sure that in almost every interview, you're going to get a question that says, tell me about a time when you had a conflict with a boss, or it might be with a coworker, or it might be with a customer, depending on the role that you're going after. What happened and what were the results? Tell me about tell me about, there won't be a time, but tell me about your greatest strength, or tell me about your greatest weakness. Tell me about you overloaded at work and your boss asked you to do one more thing. How do you manage the overload? Is going to be a question. I'm pretty sure nearly every interview has some question around that. More and more interviewers are asking questions about ethic, especially for more senior positions. They're going to ask you probably about the toughest problem you've solved. And they're likely going to ask you questions about asking for help. So again, what you want to do is you want to think of when you, for example, with the conflict, you want to think of when you have had a conflict with a boss, a coworker, and you want to think of how you resolve that problem favorably. And that's your story. This was the situation, this is what happened, and then you want to show the steps that you went through to bring that conflict to resolution. And please don't say that you've never had a conflict. You know, I used to hear that a lot when I did interviewing. Oh, I don't have any conflicts. Nonsense. Everybody has conflicts, and so it seems to the interviewer usually you're not very insightful if you say that you never have a conflict. So strengths and weaknesses. So the weakness one is often a challenge for people, and so you want to pick a weakness that is going to have something to do with the work that you're going to do. On the web, you'll see advice where it tells you to pick a weakness that doesn't have anything to do with the job, but that's ridiculous. That's not helping the interviewer to decide between you and somebody else. You want to pick a genuine weakness, but not one that's central to the role. Something that's kind of a little bit less important than central. And your story is going to say how it was a weakness several years ago, well, how you identified that weakness, what you know, you noticed it, and the problem it was causing, and how you handle that weakness so that it's almost never a problem. So you want to be genuine. You want to have integrity. You don't want to give an answer from a website. I don't want to use up all my time. Okay. So asking great questions. So make sure that you have some questions to ask in the interview. So one of the questions that that I suggest that you ask is, how do you feel my qualifications compare to your expectations for the role? The reason that you want to ask this question is because in my mind, there's two kinds of interviews. There's the interviews that I call the oral test interviews. That's the interviews where it might be one person or a panel, but they ask a question, you give your answer, they say thank you, and they move to the next question. There's no dialogue. And then there are interviews where there's dialogue. And if you're in an oral test interview, and if it's a panel or if it's one person, you're not allowed to ask, the interviewer is not allowed to ask backup questions or follow-up questions to alleviate any doubts they might have. But at the end of the interview, if you've been through an oral test, anybody on that panel who is doubting something and wants to check to see if you have something that they think is really important, they can ask it if you give them the opportunity. Then the next question is, if I was in this position and I was sitting with you a year from today, what successes would you like me to be telling you about? And you can also ask this to say, I'm wondering if you could tell me what your expectations are 6 months from now and 1 year from now, or 30 days from now and 60 days from now, depending on the kind of job you're going after. But I like this way of phrasing the question because it's kind of a behavioral question that you're throwing back at them. What's the next steps in the interview process? Make sure you find that out. And then see in big bold letters, I've got send a thank you email within 24 hours. So know who your contact is. And what I suggest to clients is that that you make sure that you write a template of your email before you go to the interview. Because when you finish the interview, you're exhausted. You just want to go home. Whether it's gone good or bad, you're tired. So have a rough draft of your email that you can tweak, and basically you want to basically, it's very short. It's going to thank them for interviewing you, and then you're going to leave space so that after the interview, when you come back, you can talk about something that you were very interested in, or you can talk about a strength that you're looking forward to bringing to them, or you can make sure that it doesn't seem like a generic email. And then close the message and send it off. But it should get there within 24 hours, and it's really important to do. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is maybe really obvious, but again, not everybody realizes it. You need to show up like the employer wants you to show up like you would if you were representing the company at a big event. So dress well for it. And if you're on video, don't have the laundry in the background. Use the Zoom backgrounds, or, have a pretty blank wall. You do not want to try and have a quiet place. I know it's hard to do during COVID. Try to have the place quiet. Dress properly, like you were going to be. I would say dress like you were representing the company at a trade show. So don't think that because it's COVID that you can dress in a sweatshirt and things like that. It doesn't work. Okay, so now I'm going to stop sharing. I'll leave the screen on. These are the links for the two things. I'll mention that we do every Thursday, we do what's called a career Zoom in. It's a team of coaches that are also, some of them are also presenting today, and it's free. And there's a topic for each day and a feature presenter, and then you can ask any question you want about job search, and we'll do our best to answer. It's an initiative. We decided we wanted to volunteer our time for people who could not afford to hire a career coach. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to see if I can find the there I am. Okay. So I'm going to try and handle some of these questions here. Wow. Hi, in my job search, I always match my profile with the required skills and experience, what usually recruiters are looking for, but I don't get any reply at all, I guess, at all negative replies in response to my application. So I think I'm guessing I'm probably gonna do a bad job of your name, but yes, I'm guessing that that you're applying to jobs online. And if you're applying to jobs online and you haven't done any networking, you have about an 8% chance of getting an interview. And think about it. They're going to receive, even for a small company in a small community, they're going to get 200 applications. I know an HR director. I live in Guelph, an HR director, and there's just 2 of them in the HR department. Small company. She put the ad on Indeed with very, very specific qualifications. 300 applications in 3 days. And she had to cut it off because they just couldn't process it. But for other jobs, they can receive a couple of thousand applications because people apply from all over the world and all over Canada. So it could be your search strategy. The employers don't reply back to jobs. I've had clients who have been to a second interview and they don't get any reply unless they're hired. That's dreadful and poor practice, but it happens. Okay, let's go to the next one. I always forget to send the thank you email. It's a good recommendation to yeah, do it ahead of time. I agree. Hi, Wayne. I was wondering if you have any advice for digital interviews where there is no interviewer. Well, actually, if you go to Eventbrite and go to Career Zoom In, you'll see that on April the 5th, you're going to have a really great expert on asynchronous one-way interviews. These are the interviews where just like you described, you're talking to a screen. I'm still learning about how to do those interviews. But she's an expert in it, and it's April the 15th. It's free, and I think you'll find it really helpful. I think the basic thing you want to do is to prepare exactly the same way. Focus on having stories for each of the qualifications, and have a story for each of those behavioral questions that I listed in the slides, and know how your strengths can help the employer, and know why you want the job. And if you do that, and then the thing is, be mindful. Oh, I think we're finishing.
I just came on. Keep going. I just came on to say thanks, but feel free to keep going.
Oh, okay, let me know when I'm done. Okay, and so prepare the same way as you do for a digital interview. But what you want to do, some of those digital platforms have a practice session, and if they have a practice session, then use it. Go to their website, find out how their platform works before you actually go on it. And if they have practice, take advantage of it. Practice, you can set up a Zoom meeting with just yourself. So practice asking yourself a question and answering the question on Zoom, and then record it. Because if you only have one person, you can record it even with the free version of Zoom, and watch the recording of your answer, so you can see how you're doing. Okay, sorry, hi Wayne, I'm wondering if you have any advice. Oh, digital interview. Hi Wayne, thanks for your information. Can you give an example? Oh, a canned answer. Oh, sure, that's a great one. Okay, so I can't tell you how many times I've heard when you say, well, tell me about your weakness, the person who says, you know, I'm just too perfectionistic. And I used to be very perfectionistic, and once I became aware of that, I set my standards a little lower, and I'm now less perfectionist. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but if it's really true and you have a genuine story, it's great. But if you're just saying that with no context in it, then it's going to be a canned answer. Let's see. Hi Wayne, thanks for wonderful tips. Can you provide a link to the free career Zoom in session?
Wayne, do you want to maybe send me the link through email, and I can just pop it in our event chat, maybe?
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as well, if you have any other links you want me to share, just let me know.
Okay, great. I will. Okay.
Yeah, but I just wanted to say thanks for speaking today.
I think we're done.
Yeah, I think that was the last question. So yeah,
okay.
I just want to say thanks for speaking today. It's always great to have you at our events. Definitely a great source of information. We did have a few other questions come in, so I know we're a bit out of time. So if people want to follow up with you after the event, what's the best way to get in touch?
Wayne, WYNE.Greenway at careeraviators.com.
Okay, great. And do you have a LinkedIn profile that maybe they can reach out to you as well, or just through your email?
Yeah, they can reach out LinkedIn profile, and they can also go on the website, and there's one of those dreadful little boxes that people can write
the question box thing
stuff in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, I just want to say.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.
And I'll look forward. Do I send you those links?
Yeah, if you want to send them to me, I can just put them in chat here. Or if you want to put them in chat as well, you can. But yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for speaking. It's always great to have you at our events. I know you've spoken a few times in the past, and it's always been a great session, great source of information. And thank you everyone for watching today. Just to let you know, our next round of sessions are starting in about 2 or so minutes. So that will be Lama Yunus and I believe Lindsay Hardnell, Laura Hardnell. But yeah, thanks again, Wayne, for speaking. It was great to have you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
I can't find the link.
It's okay. Bye.